Welcome everyone in to the premiere episode of the Home Pod Office. I'm Bobby. He's Brandon, and joining us this week is Zach McCann. Zach, welcome in. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm been super excited to get this going. I've been poring over the text and the information provided and online, watching the episodes multiple times. So I'm super excited for this. Really ready to kick it off. Zach, how about you, man?
Just honored to be on the maiden voyage with you guys.
Glad to have
nice
you.
It's nice to have that Game of Thrones magic back.
Yeah,
I've been feeling
it. Is. I mean, let's just jump right into it. It's been a couple years now since any of us have had a George R. R. Martin Game of Thrones fix. I guess some people have had a fix through Elden Ring, but this is for Brandon and I our first fix of George R. R. Martin and this world of Ice and Fire in a couple of years. So right up from the start, that opening scene was amazing.
Winter came. Okay. So
yeah. Yeah, it was a long winter.
Yeah. I mean, getting back into this world, I think that the intro scene in the first episode of House of Dragon was a perfect way to do it. Just having that, the council all together and kind of just setting the scene for us. Having the old king there and at the council at Harrenhal. I think it was a perfect way to open us back up into this world, getting us our fix again.
What did you guys make of the ending of Game of Thrones? I know this is about House of the Dragon, but I feel like kind of coming into it with some history is probably 100%. Helpful. Yeah.
I'll start off. No, Brandon, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay. So obviously there was a lot of volatile thoughts about the ending of Game of Thrones. There's a lot of people who swore off House of the Dragon because of the ending. I have said since day one or the last day of Game of Thrones that the fact of the matter is ending a TV show, any TV show, is incredibly difficult. It is hard to put a bow on something, especially as big as Game of Thrones, and make everyone happy. Now, with that said, it wasn't good, but I don't think it was as terrible as everyone says. I had fun watching it. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for, to have fun. Were there things that could have done better? Yes. Should Jon have pet his dog? Yes. But I mean, all these things, at the end of the day, what are we going to do? Listen, there are outside forces. I mean, the writers, they were on a timeline. They had to get to Star Wars. The actors don't want to be there these actors are growing up. They have other projects to do. If they cut that into 2 seasons, like a lot of people thought, there's a good chance that we're going to recast some of these main people in the last season. So it's one of those things where we got what we got. And I think we should be happy that we even got a final season, that it didn't just end like a lot of shows do.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree a lot. So a lot of people don't like even the story that's told and how it ends and what happens. And I don't have any problem with that, really. Any of, how things it was more of the why we got 6 episodes of something that I think HBO wanted 14 episodes. I think George R. R. Martin said 12 episodes. So I see what you're saying about, people wanting to get to other projects and stuff. But I think we saw from a lot of the actors afterward that they also weren't really happy with the wrapping up of this project. So I was not pleased with it. I wasn't one of those people that swore off House of the Dragon or anything like that. But I've had a really bad taste in my mouth over Game of Thrones over that. So that's, kind of where I landed.
And don't hear what I'm not saying. It should have gone longer. It should have been better. Relative to how great the show was, we deserved a better ending, but it wasn't people who were mad that, Anne became the king, sure, it was a little weird, but I didn't necessarily have a problem with it. I think at that point it's like, all right, yeah, it wasn't predictable and I like that. Zach, what were your thoughts on it?
I think looking at the later seasons of the show as glorified fan fiction, which it is because you don't have the books that Martin has written at that point. But honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, which are the last 2 books.
They're very slow.
The series
very slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the mixed up nature of them, and the fact that you kind of have the character splits, it's almost like a wrestling brand split almost.
Yeah,
Between SmackDown and Raw. But at the same time, you look at this, and I think the series kind of peaked with Storm of Swords, and I think you saw that in the show a little bit too. Once you kind of got past the Storm of Swords arc, so it did affect my excitement for House of the Dragon, and I didn't watch it until a few days after the premiere.
Same.
It wasn't like in anticipation. It was just, okay, I'll take a look at this, and was just so pleasantly surprised and kind of had that feeling of, they got me again. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
After watching that premiere, I felt like I did in like season 3 and 4 of Game of Thrones, where I needed more, where I just wanted to go on forever.
Where the best parts were not all of the dope battle scenes and the awesome conflicts that you get to see. It's that political intrigue that really ends up drawing you into the show, and you didn't expect it. I'm on the opposite side of a lot of folks right now that are not enjoying these first few episodes because they are setting the scene and setting the political landscape.
Yeah.
I am in the exact opposite standpoint of them. I love the setup. I love this, these houses. We need to do this because we're actually getting to see a weird thing in the Westeros world where we're in the longest and undisputed time of peace in this world. And so they're living a different world than we're living, or that we've seen in Game of Thrones, where even after we came in a little bit after Robert's Rebellion, but the realm wasn't really super stable at that point. There were still questions being had about Robert and the Baratheon rule. And he wasn't really a ruler. He was just a great warrior that happened to be the strongest guy that got to sit on the throne and had the best claim. So I'm really loving the world and the setup, because as a book reader and as a guy that's gone in and read the World of Ice and Fire history book, and you kind of see some of this, but it's actually coming to life with George R.R. Martin's vision of the little things that you're not going to get in those books that he likes to include later on. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, let's jump in now to episode 1, the heirs to the dragon. Right off the bat, it shows us, 172 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. And like you said earlier, I think this is a great way to start the show off, kind of bridging between people who may have watched it, may have not watched it. The scene at Harrenhal, of them choosing between Rhaenys and Viserys. And one thing, we're gonna be talking about this a lot because they are so intertwined. Is on that scroll that Jaehaerys receives is the stamp of the Maesters. So, and obviously, if we fast forward a little bit into the episode, is Viserys' hand, Otto from Old Town. More than likely, I have a feeling that the Maesters of this time, who are we know are not big fans of the Targaryens because of the inbreeding and stuff. They could be kind of an Illuminati and pushing things. Maybe the Lords did want Rhaenys, and the Maester said no. So we get the Queen That Never Was from that, and then almost immediately we jump into an absolutely fantastic opening shot of Syrax and Rhaenyra in the sky. What were your guys' thoughts on the CGI? Starting off just with the dragons. I mean, they look awesome.
Zach, go ahead, man.
Oh, absolutely. I think you look at the way that you can tell this show has a much higher budget than Game of Thrones did. And in fact, in interviews with George R.R. Martin, he talks about, certain things that he wished were changed in the first season that drove him crazy just due to budgetary concerns. And you can see that those have been completely wiped away. I think the CG looks great for the dragons. I think King's Landing itself, it was almost like seeing an old friend again. So it was cool to kind of see it at its peak, at its apex, because say what you will about the Targaryens' long line, it is a series of the most, peaceful, consistent rule that Westeros had ever seen was the Targaryen line. So I think that they really did a good job of just setting that initial tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with anything either of you guys have said. I mean, really does a good job of, you know, kind of bringing everything into the fold for you. Hey, we're going to have dragons and we're going to show you these dragons and they're going to be a big part of this. So right after, you know, they've kind of set the stage for where we're going to be at through the episode, and you get that Rhaenyra Targaryen flying through the air on Syrax and flying over King's Landing, and then getting a little bit more even from that when she lands, and you kind of learn, and not that we didn't already know this, but Harold Westerling, the Kingsguard, saying, you know, every time you land, you know, that saved my head from a spike. Because it was a time where, look, I mean, if, you know, she got hurt and went missing or something, out with the old Kingsguard, in with the new, you know, would be kind of the rule of the time. But just seeing those, that they had dragon masters, and then there were older dragon masters, and they were teaching younger dragon masters how to you know, tame them and bring them in. It's very intriguing to see. I don't know if we're going to get to see a lot of that aspect of it, kind of the behind the scenes with the dragons, but I think it was cool for us to get it pretty early on to show that they do have a lot of dragons. They do have, you know, this is why they're able to rule. So I'm loving the computer generation and everything that they're showing us so far. The budget is clear.
To jump off your back there, Brandon, I think it's interesting that it's almost like the showrunners have really designed a lot of things to almost turn everyone watching into that Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when you hear things like, oh, Westerling, oh, look at that there, oh, I hear these great houses, or I thought it was pretty interesting just how you kind of get those wheels turning of, oh, I know that house, or, you know, talk of Starks or anything like that.
Yeah, so, exactly. I was about to say the Westerlings, you know, if you're a big Stark truther out there, you probably and it's not as prominent in the show, but for us book readers, we know that was a plant. Okay, my boy Rob got done dirty.
And then we see, you know, right from the very beginning, the first real scene of this, we see what is the downfall of the Targaryens. We see the infighting, we see the dragon pit, which you know, their source of the Targaryen power was their dragons, and they started losing. You know, the dragons started getting smaller. They started domesticating these dragons, and that was the downfall of them. And I think we're going to start seeing that. You know, I think back to when it was, I believe, Tyrion talking to Daenerys or someone, and you know, they had she and Daenerys had a skull of a dragon that could fit in her hand, and that was
little
like,
guys.
This was the fall. You know. At some point, you know, we were masters, and I think even his name's escaped my mind. Other Lannister,
Jamie.
Jamie, yeah, sorry, Jamie Lannister talks about how, Jamie talks about how, it's easy to make fun of these little dragons, but think about it. At one point, the dragon pit could fit, you know, Balon. I mean, like, these were, you know, they went from great dragons to, you know, that's how they lost their power. And so we move on from that. And one of my favorite scenes in the show is Daemon, when we first see Daemon sitting on the Iron Throne. Just the way he's crouched over, like he kind of, the way he's sitting, avoiding getting cut in the same way that his brother did in the back, you know, on his left side. So he's avoiding sitting on his left side. Like he's obviously sat in this throne many times. He was able to sneak into the place with, you know, knowing all of the secret passageways. You know, the Kingsguard talks about that. What are you guys' thoughts on Daemon?
Love Daemon. I think that you brought up a really crucial point, that, you know, where they were in the world of Westeros. I know we talked about the peace, and at this point in time, they don't have a Master of Whispers. They don't have that spy lord that kind of runs the roost. I don't think they get that until a little bit later, coming up soon. But him able to, I mean, the prince of, you know, that everybody loves in the whole country is able to sneak into King's Landing and get into the throne room without anybody knowing, and then him letting somebody else know was very intriguing to me. As far as you mentioned the wounds in the same spot in the back, I don't know that that's known to anybody but Otto Hightower and, like you said, the Maester. What they were talking about, that wound in his back.
Well, what I'm saying is obviously he's avoiding that side because he knows that if he sits there, it's going to cut him. So that's why Daemon is avoiding sitting in that. The way that, at least I feel that he's sitting like that because he sat in this chair a lot.
It's a throne full of swords. You know, that's more of the I think the thing. And like they've talked about it. I mean, as being, if you get cut by the throne, it's almost telling you you're not worthy. And so that is why Otto Hightower is wanting to keep that so low key. And, you know, and it kind of goes to your point that you said earlier that they may be in league with the Maesters because obviously they're from the same area, Old Town. And him telling her, you know, nobody can know about this, about the king, you know, being cut like this. So, but you go back to Daemon. I mean, I've really enjoyed Daemon, and Matt Smith does such a good job with him. Oof. But I'll tell you, honestly, what I can't get over from this scene, obviously the dialogue is fantastic between Rhaenyra and Daemon, but just listening to the flow of how Valyrian is supposed to flow is just so intriguing to me. And it makes sense for Dany to have more of a choppy type of Valyrian because she never just spoke it regularly with folks.
Yeah, she just heard her mother speak it.
It just flows so well, like off, you know, kind of rolls off the tongue. And so that was such a cool spot to me. But you also get to see, you know, you get to hear about Dark Sister. Okay, so we know where Dark Sister is now, and you know we know that it's going to play a part. And, you know, him, you get to really see that relationship with Rhaenyra. That, you know, some people may not know about, that you're going to get to learn a little bit about. So, Zach, what about you, man? What's your thoughts on Daemon Targaryen?
I enjoy Daemon. I think that it's difficult not to watch this show and try and cast people in your head as, oh, this person is going to be the Ned Stark of the show. This person is going to be the Littlefinger of the show. And it's almost as if Daemon is the cool Tyrion, the Tyrion that everyone wanted, the Tyrion wanted to be almost, you know, he's, you know, the big, strong knight going out after this. And to Matt Smith's credit, you know, you can tell that he has kind of that poise about him that you get from a classically Shakespearean trained actor like you have in Matt Smith. So I think that he's playing things very, very interesting. I mean, obviously later in the episode, you get the sad boy at the orgy that you have with him. Something. But,
just the organizer.
Which, by the way, not to interrupt you, we got to see Matt Smith fuck. Like, we got to see Doctor Who bang, bang, bang. Like, first, we finally get to see Doctor Who bang.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good on him. But no, I am enjoying him as Daemon Targaryen, and no future spoilers, obviously, but the arc that he's going on right now, you can tell kind of he's sowing the seeds of what you're going to see from Daemon Targaryen in the future.
Yeah. So the tournament. First off, I don't know if this Tournament Grounds is on the same spot as what we saw in the beginning of Game of Thrones, where where that tournament happened. But it's very clear. You can tell the differences between the two tournament areas. That one, the Targaryens are super rich, and it really does show just how much in debt the Baratheons and the Red Keep was, because those two arenas were very different. This arena setup was amazing. And I thought the entire tournament scene was awesome.
I think I think Zach mentioned that. I think that's one of the things that George R. R. Martin was a little, you know, he couldn't really get the budget. It was super early on. Something that actually just happened in episode 4 that we'll talk about obviously later. That was I don't know if that one's the main thing that you were talking about, Zach, but I know that the King's hunting scene was something
episode 3,
and that was something that he really, you know, was not, but it was also something that you can even make it canon. in your head that, like you're saying, the Baratheons were in super debt. Robert wasn't a true king. He would do that kind of stuff.
And we just got done with a war. So, I mean, it would make sense that, everything was destroyed and they were building it back up.
Yeah, the tourney scene and and a scene that we didn't talk about earlier that I feel is important to kind of bring back before the tourney scene.
Yeah,
is Rhaenyra going to see her mother before going to the small council after the dragon, and her mother Emma Aaron, is it Emma?
Yeah,
I think so.
Emma
Aaron is telling her, like, hey, we have royal wombs. Like, this is our battlefield, giving birth, and this is what we do for the realm. And so I found that to be a very great parallel from the tournament scene to going into the birthing scene. But it kind of shows what you're going to get from Viserys. A lot of times he's putting that cart before the horse. He's celebrating this, the birth of his heir before it's ever actually been born. It was way better than the original Game of Thrones tourney scene. Obviously, we didn't get a horse chopped in half, so that was a little frustrating. But we did get to see some dead Starks. Once the killing started happening. But it was a really good parallel for me when they come and get the king. And again, going back to what Bobby's saying, the Illuminati Maesters. If you'll notice, the Maester didn't tell the king first. He told Otto Hightower first, who then told the king about his wife being in distress of being birthed. So when he left, that's when Rhaenys Targaryen said, and the day grows bloody. The king kind of goes away, and then disarray happens within the.
And it's funny you say that, because one thing I really liked, it's little details, is the first episode I watched with my wife and my in-laws, and my mother-in-law was like, why is no one stopping this? I'm like, well, only the king can tell them to stop doing this, and the king's gone. And if you think back to Game of Thrones, it was Robert Baratheon, and he said, in the name of the king, stop this madness. And they all, okay, we're done. So without a doubt, I mean, they were like, okay, hey, cat's away, the mice will play. And I thought that was a cool scene.
And Rhaenys Targaryen answered their question. I mean, a realm with unprecedented peace, and you got guys like that. Killing is what they do for fun. I mean, that's what they've trained and bred to do, and they don't get to do that. And so you give them this open opportunity to go out there, and like you said, there ain't nobody there to tell them, hey, stop this. If their lord doesn't tell them, or the king doesn't tell them, what do all these other people here care? If they want to bash each other's heads in, like, go for it, man. That's on you guys.
Yeah. What did y'all think about Daemon calling out Otto's son?
Zach, you got?
I mean, it's clear there's no love lost between Daemon and Otto. I mean, if anything, I think it's very clear that they're trying to paint Otto as kind of the little finger of the show. Obviously in a much higher position of power than Littlefinger ever was, but with the way that he kind of, starts making subtle little hints and is trying to manipulate Viserys into doing not necessarily what's best for the realm, but what's best for him and his family and his station, whether it's, trying to subtly pull Daemon from everything or giving him the Kingsguard. It's always Otto who does this under the guise of protecting Viserys. And I think Viserys is such a fascinating character to me, because this is a guy who's just trying to make the best decision with what he's given here. I think it's so interesting to have the full weight of the Targaryen dynasty on this guy who can't handle it. For so long, we're told that the Targaryens are rash and wrathful and prone to outbursts of violence. And you don't see that with Viserys. You see it with Rhaenyra, you see it with Daemon, but with Viserys, you see a guy who's saying...
See it with Rhaenys.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because, I mean, a lot of people immediately, they jump to, Viserys is weak. I don't think so. I think Viserys, he is being put in a situation where he was chosen by the lords. He was not he was not named heir. So his entire life, his legitimacy will be questioned. He is reigning over during peacetime, and for a lot of these things, being a king during wartime in this time is probably a little bit easier because we're at war, we do war. But during peacetime, it's like, okay, I got to deal with my master of coin. I gotta be a politician now and not a general. While also keeping your cool and not becoming a mad rash Targaryen.
I think the Viserys. Well, you brought up a great point. Like his leadership style is suited for a much later time in history, where you're taking your advice of all the people and where they've had a king that has ruled and has taken over, and he gives everybody so much latitude, which is great, getting all your small council's opinions, but never he can be easily swayed from one side to the other. It's very hard for him to seemingly make it.
Brandon. I'd even argued that he's not supposed to be a leader. This is a person who doesn't know what he wants until it's right in front of him. Mm-hmm. He knows that he wants his male heir, and he takes extreme dramatic actions, as we learn in this upcoming scene, in order to try and ensure that. And the gods laugh him, and you continually see him say, okay, I want to make my daughter happy. I want this. So this is a guy who does not know what he wants and is thus easily swayed by the people that he trusts around him.
Yeah, and I think we're going to circle back around to Viserys' mindset a lot throughout, this episode, because there are a lot of things that change with him and that we find out as the show goes on. And I don't want to be, jumping back and forth. But as you said, this next scene, the birthing scene of Prince, is it Balon or Baelor? I think
Balon.
Balon. Yeah. What a tough scene to watch. And in the books, George R. R. Martin, all we are told is that Emma dies in childbirth. And now I see all this as canon because George R. R. Martin is giving his input.
He's been
so as far as
I'm
concerned, in my opinion, if he is giving his input, this is legit. It really does paint Viserys as a different person who does have at times that Targaryen blood in him of making a rash decision, getting that son and these dragon dreams or whatever they call them, the Targaryen, the mad dreams. He was so focused on that and making that dream and prophecy come true that and he kind of screwed everything up.
Well, what is the consistent thing that he always says throughout the first episodes that we've seen? Not even I am above duty. Not even I are above, things that I have to do. So he sees it as his duty to produce a male heir. And the fact that Aemma tells him, I can't get pregnant again. I won't get pregnant again. It makes you think that, okay, in this case, if this is my last shot, I'm willing to sacrifice my wife.
When we go back to the scene where she said that to him, to me, that was a Chekhov gun. When she said that, I was like, "Oh, she died. Oh, she's dying. She's dead." Mm-hmm. Because if this baby doesn't survive, he's definitely going to get rid of her, and without a doubt. But that's just kind of how things were, and it was a tough scene to watch. We see when they say, "Oh, it's a baby boy," and then you kind of hear the coughing, and then you kind of just hear a very lack of crying. You're like, "Oh shit." And that kind of takes us into the pirate scene. Unless you guys have anything to add into the
I feel like it's it's important to bring up them bringing Dorne into the fold a little bit with Criston Cole, and him and his fight with Daemon, and showing that he's a skilled in battle. And so they did keep him as a steward of the Dondarrion house, but so he wasn't in the books. He's not Dornish, but they made him a Dornish character, so you can kind of bring in what they bring to the fold. And obviously we'll talk a little bit more about Sir Criston Cole coming up here in a little bit, but I feel like it's important to bring that up, that Daemon Targaryen was widely regarded as one of the best knights in the realm, and he got beat by this lowly nobody house in a major tournament, and literally could have been killed if he wouldn't have yielded. So kind of ending both on those essentially defeat for both of these Targaryen brothers.
Once again, the imagery of House Targaryen falls. Yeah. So now I do want to little bit of a conspiracy theory. This could be way out of whack, but you know, hey, it's game.
That's what we're here for, though, right?
Yeah. So we see during the birthing scene that the Maesters bring up this experimental new thing. We see that they told Otto first. We see it's a Maester who holds the Balon first. What is there an option? Is there a possibility that the Maesters have this all planned to get rid of Aemma, get rid of Balon, make it the king's decision so that he holds this guilt, so that Otto can then send Alicent, and they have a higher, and then knowing that Alicent can kind of pull the king's strings and possibly put
that's not in their best
Hightower
interest.
child on the throne eventually.
No, that's not in their. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't feel like at that point, it's in Otto Hightower's best interest. His best interest, probably in my mind, is for him to get a male heir. But I mean, so I don't think it's as deep as him, organizing the death.
That is No, the organization of the death, that is a huge conspiracy. I think what isn't a conspiracy, though, and what is very likely, is that Otto is opportunistic. That he sees what's happening in that room.
If it happens.
Now, the moment he sees Emma's gone, his gears are working, and he is immediately going to Alicent, and it just so happened to probably works better for Otto that Balon doesn't survive.
Right. Well, if he is one of the only ones, him and I think Lord Corlys are the only two who are truly playing the Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah.
Daemon's so concerned with his issues. Viserys is just trying to make it from day to day, where these two are the only ones that you see politicking and scheming and everything within there.
And
so
Daemon
doesn't. It's not a possibility.
Yeah.
Daemon doesn't.
And my thing on Otto is that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just agreeing with Zach there. Daemon doesn't seem to actually care about being the hand of the king, other than the fact that it's the number 2 position. He doesn't seem to care to be the hand and do all the, the king shits and the hand wipe. He doesn't seem like the guy that wants to wipe,
No.
So,
Daemon, he either wants it all or nothing. He's either wants to he wants to sit on the throne, or he doesn't want to be anywhere near the throne. One thing about Otto, though, is that I do get the feeling that some of his choices, and we see this a little bit later on as well, is that his choices don't seem so primarily be about what's best for Otto, but sometimes they seem like what's worse for Daemon. Like, let's just get Daemon out of the picture, because truly, I think Daemon's the only one that sees Otto. I mean, let's be honest, Daemon's the only one that sees Otto for what he is, which is a politician playing his brother for a fool.
So, but that plays right into it, though. What's worse for Daemon is best for Otto, though. If you can get the king to send him away and get him out from under, his ear, and have he knows that he's got a relationship with Rhaenyra, which Viserys loves dearly. So that there's always that possibility that Daemon goes about things incorrectly and does things in a more Targaryen way that we're used to. And Viserys doesn't, Otto is putting these little thoughts in his head that's like turning him against all the little things that Daemon is actually doing. I don't necessarily think Daemon at this point in time wants to be on the throne as much as he just wants to be valued in his brother's eyes. And he doesn't see why a guy like Otto Hightower, Otto Hightower is here. I don't even think if Balon didn't die and he wasn't the heir, I don't think that he would even be upset.
I think at that point,
I think he was truly somber at that, at the brothel scene. And, what we'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah. I don't even think he said what they said he said, in my personal opinion. Because we never see Matt Smith or Daemon Targaryen.
And that actually we're getting to that in a second. But real quickly, the funeral pyre scene of Aemma and Balon. We see, and it's something just as small as that. And I really like this in the writing, that you even see when Rhaenyra says Jacaerys, that she says it much different. It's much cleaner. Much
rolled.
Jacaerys. Yeah. And I thought that was a beautiful scene with the dragon and just everything. But yeah, so probably one of the biggest scenes of episode 1 was the Air for a Day scene.
Well, hold on. I still want to go on the funeral pyre scene. I think go
for it.
I think it kind of goes back to Daemon being actually caring when he's the one that kind of steps up and talks to Rhaenyra and tells her, "Hey, my brother needs you right now." And so that is why I feel like that scene right there showed me how he actually felt when he got her to, hey, you have to do this. Your dad's not going to be able to do it. Like, you got to step up to the plate and do this. So I think that's very important pre-scene to this next scene that we get.
Yeah. Which is the Air for a Day scene. And I understand that you don't think he said it. I don't know. I think that one thing we have to look at is that the source that this was written off was told from the point of view of a maester and a jester, and that even the book itself was a lot of hearsay and what ifs and maybes. Like, the whole point is that we're not supposed to know if he really said it, but because that's what the Game of Thrones is, a little bit of hearsay, a little bit of rumor. He didn't explicitly say he didn't say it when questioned about it. He says we all grieve in our own way. So it's kind of, in my opinion, I would think that he would say I didn't say that, but I don't know. Brandon, obviously you think he didn't say it. Zach, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it much matters if he said it or not.
Sure.
Honestly,
Agreed.
I think that's. I agree. I think that it doesn't matter because even if he says he didn't say it,
it shows at the end of the day that whether he said it or not, the fact that Otto has Viserys' ear so well that Viserys would immediately think he did says everything there needs to be said about the relationship.
That is why I think that he didn't say it, and I think that he didn't even fight it, because once he heard, once he heard that he knew who told. It was, it's one of those things. You don't got to tell me who told you. I know who told you. And so they make it, they make it out to be a celebration, but we know that Daemon Targaryen's not there having a good time, hooting and hollering on top of tables and stuff. He's the Lord Commander of the Gold Cloaks and has a certain reputation that he has to uphold. And so his men they don't have any real loyalty to who the heir is or they have loyalty to Daemon Targaryen. So they're going to celebrate because that solidifies their position in life. So, I think that there was that certain expectation from him to be that cold, callous Targaryen that, just another death. But I think it did affect him. I think he was upset because we do see that relationship that he has with his family through Rhaenyra and through caring about Viserys. So I don't think he said it. But again, Zach made the greatest point in all of Game of Thrones. It's not about what you say. It's about what people think you say.
It doesn't matter.
Especially the king. So,
100%.
But he is not. He was not happy to be sent back to the Vale. He is not a fan of the people in the Vale. He prefers goats to Vale.
Yeah,
apparently.
Yeah, and it turns out we find out later he did not go back to the Vale.
He did not.
He does.
He did not.
He does call Viserys weak to his face. I think this was a very important scene just for the future of this relationship between these brothers.
And how?
But then after that, we get.
No, I was just going to say how Viserys tried to portray himself. He tried to portray himself as the one with strength and the stronger of the two because he's the king.
Yeah, holding the sword. Yeah,
holding Blackfire. Yeah, Daemon's got Dark Sister, but we got Blackfire, the true Valyrian sword of House Targaryen, and he's trying to.
He is trying to put this image of Aegon the Conqueror sitting on the throne, and I think that at the end of the day, like I don't think he looked like a pretender. I think that when the time comes, Viserys was able to step up, be the king. Maybe it was misguided because he had someone in his ear, but he stepped up, showed strength when he did, and that's why I don't like this image that Viserys is a weak king. I think that he is a king.
Here is the argument I'll make to that. There is one of the best speeches in Breaking Bad is when Mike is talking to Walter White and he's talking about half measures. and how I chose a half measure when I should have gone the full way. Viserys is the king of half measures. He doesn't go the full way with anything. If he knew his wife wasn't going to bear him a son and he wanted to actually have the bloodline, he'd take a second wife. That's tradition in the Targaryen system. It's the whole thing that Daemon does. If he truly thought that Daemon was betraying him, he would have executed him. This is a king who does not lead the whole way. He has that human element, which makes him a fascinating character, but he won't go the whole way for the realm.
He talks about he talks about his duty and what is necessary for him to do to strengthen the Targaryens and his line. Exactly as he said, it would have not been crazy or unheard of for him to take a second wife. He would have had to fight with some maesters over it a little bit, but guess what? You got a bunch of dragons, and generally you win that fight. So that's if he wanted to have a heart to heart and talk to Daemon like he did, then he should have called him into the small council chamber and had a heart to heart. He's not scared that Daemon's going to kill him or anything. To bring him in and have that huge show in the throne room in front of your King's Guard and your hand. It was just, if you're not actually gonna do something, you're not gonna do something about it. So staging,
he's portraying, he's attempting to wants to portray strength.
Like, why are you holding up Blackfire like this, man? Like, we're brothers. Like, we could have had this thing, because Daemon didn't say anything that he wouldn't have said, behind closed doors. So that was, it's all the show. It's all the act of what being a king, what he thinks being a king should be, instead of just being the leader and just having that kind of guide his kingship.
Yeah. And then, and I think this next scene, we see a lot of what makes Viserys, because obviously going into what I'm calling the terrible winter scene, when they are down in the crypts in front of the skull of Bayon, he calls Rhaenyra down, and they talks about how he's going to make her the heir, and he goes into the Song of Ice and Fire, how here is a premonition that has been passed down from Targaryen kings. And so that really tells me, like, he's not just a Targaryen. He's not just a Targaryen. He has on his mind at all times. And we see it when we see the King's Dagger in almost every scene that he's in sticking out. It is on his mind, this premonition of the terrible winter that is to come. And he says a Targaryen must sit on the throne to protect the world. So he's constantly worrying about this. And we see in later episodes where he talks about how, he has these dreams, and that it weighs heavy on him, and he wants to make, rather than, and he has the mindset of, rather than letting destiny make these dreams come true, he has to fight for it. He has to make them come true, which a lot of times ends up screwing him over.
Well, it's something that we definitely see that we finally get the confirmation that this is something that is passed down from Targaryen to Targaryen. I mean, we know that they know about something at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne are responsible for building most of the wall in the north. So, I mean, this is obviously something that they had a thought process about. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that, but I feel like it's so great to see that dagger kind of come back into play in the first episode of the House of Dragon, when it played such a crucial role in the first episode of Game of Thrones. So to see that, and to see him talking to Rhaenyra, I think he truly does believe that she'll be a good heir and a good queen. It's kind of interesting to see what we see after the fact of this, but you get to see that dope Baelorian skull, the Black Dread. That's sitting there having that story right there is pretty neat for the end scene, and getting to see all of these lords and some people that, some names that we all recognize, and, get to see the Starks, pledge their loyalty to Rhaenyra as the heir of the throne. So I really liked that last scene. I think it was a really good way to kind of wrap up episode 1, kind of get us that first part of the story kind of told. Zach, anything specific that, you were liking about that scene?
I mean, obviously it was catnip for, Game of Thrones fans to kind of hear about some things that they saw on the show and are looking forward to, and kind of gave the Targaryen almost that kind of secret society kind of thing that people are into. So, no, I thought it was well done. And yeah, I thought it was a good way to end the show, to give people something to get excited for that they recognize.
Yeah. So yeah, that about wraps up episode 1. And we're going to quickly move in, to episode 2, The Rogue Prince. This story is taking place 6 months after the events of episode 1. We do a small time jump. We finally get to see the intro to the show. So good. They use the same Game of Thrones music. The intro is a bunch of clockwork gears of different Targaryen house sigils with the blood coming in, and anytime a ruler dies, it gets filled with blood and goes to the next one, creating like a family tree. And then at the end, it all comes back to just the full Targaryen symbol. What are your guys' thoughts on this show intro?
Yeah, I mean, just the music alone.
I think it was the only way you could do it. Yeah, you had to do it.
The music, you just get that feel. You just got that feel like you're, I know a few of us a few years ago swore it off forever, but, it was hard when it, gets inside and takes over a little bit. And I mean, it really felt like, okay, Game of Thrones, this is it. I'm going to be glued to my couch for the next 8 years. And then be inevitably pissed off. Like season 8, I'm going to be, I'm never watching another. And then, they're going to do, Robert's Rebellion or the Blackfire Rebellion. And then I'm going to creep back in and watch another one. But I was super excited to hear that and see, I like how they kind of stuck with the same sort of theme, but had it a little different. That was super awesome.
100%. Zach, what were your thoughts on it?
Oh, I thought it was great. I mean, it's always great to hear that music again. And they did kind of the, dark blood version of it. So no, I thought it was good.
Yeah. But we go right into the stepstones of the battles that are happening there. And we see that it's from Corlys's view, as he is talking about how the crab feeder is just wreaking havoc there. And from they're calling it the Triarchy or something like that from the Free Cities. And immediately we get, I think his name is Beesbury, the master of coin, talking about, Westeros King has ever gone to open war with the Free Cities. Well, I think this dude's got a little bit of an ulterior motive because, he's working with the Iron Bank over in the Free Cities. So obviously
master of coin.
He doesn't want war to happen. Yeah, he's the master of coin. He doesn't want war with the Free Cities. And Corlys is really showing that, in every time, he speaks up, he is just, he has a spot at that table, but his family weren't dragon lords. So there'll always be second fiddle to the Targaryens, and they'll always be seen as second fiddle from the Targaryens.
I see it more at that small council meeting as just 6 months later, but nothing has changed. Rhaenyra is still, she's the heir, but she's still the cupbearer. She still doesn't really have a seat or a voice. Lord Corlys is getting ignored, or better yet, I don't think he doesn't get ignored. His whatever he has to say just gets turned away from by Otto. That's more of what I'm seeing it at. If it was just Lord Corlys and Viserys, I'm sure he could make his point and say, this is why we need to do this. But again, we go back to that. Viserys isn't always making all the decisions. Otto is there to kind of steer and guide. And then you get Rhaenyra kind of jumping in into the fold saying, hey, just send some dragon riders. We can go over there and we can clear some stuff up really quickly. But I mean, it's important to Corlys, as we know, because that is, shipping and boat and being the master ship, that's his thing. And so if this is, the shipping lanes get shut down, that's something that's going to severely impact his house as one of the stronger houses in the land.
And one thing I thought was really funny, just to chime in about Corlys, was that anytime there was any talk about any form of succession or anything like that, he would not drink. And so I think it was even in episode 1, even in little this, that he's like, no, I don't want to drink. And then he goes over to pour himself a drink. And then immediately they start talking about it. And he just slams it. He just puts it down. It's like, well, I guess I'm not drinking, because he wants to stay sober to look for any weaknesses to try and get his family back to power. But I thought that was just some good writing there. But yeah, Zach, go ahead.
No, the opportunist in Lord Corlys is something that you just continually see, but you can tell he just doesn't have quite the same stuff that like an Otto has. And it's very clear in the scene later in this episode where they are talking about the proposed marriage between Viserys and Laena. You know, Viserys is clearly very, very taken aback with the idea of marrying a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And Lord Corlys. Yeah, no problem.
Corlys isn't much for Corlys is not much for subtlety.
None. Not at all.
Viserys, I'd like you to bang my daughter.
Yeah.
And you can, and so that kind of brings up. I guess we're going to talk about that a little bit, right? When they talk at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah, we'll talk about
so
that.
Zach, did you have more you wanted to say? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, go right ahead.
Yeah, the Kingsguard selection. I thought this was another pretty cool scene. We see a lot of these noble houses. We see this. It's a very ritualistic thing with these chess pieces, and and we see Rhaena up in the ramparts just watching. Whenever we see Rhaenyra doing anything, we always usually see Rhaena somewhere creeping, watching to see how the heir is acting. But then we see Sir Criston Cole again, the only one there with some real battle experience. And Rhaenyra has made it very clear, that even though you have Otto there saying, well, this is who we should, this is
it was a Mallister. A Mallister was one of the options.
I thought, yeah.
No, I mean, Otto was there, but I'm saying the first person they introduced was like a Mallister, and then I forget the second, maybe a Bracken, something. But he mentions her. Oh, they're very important houses to the realm, where she's seeing it as this is a real opportunity to do a real leadership move and pick the best guy for the job. It's not often she was going to get to do that opportunity, but she saw it as the Kingsguard is not a political position. I mean, it has been all throughout history and probably, as we see, continues to be. But it shouldn't be. It should be this guy is one of the best 7 knights in the whole land, and so he should protect me. And as we've seen from Criston Cole, not only did she get to see him in person at the tourney, but like you said, he actually has had combat experience with real, not blunted swords, and people there to kind of pull you off each other. Full blown battles in the Dornish Marches, which was a very tough battlefield. I mean, we see as you see later on when they try to conquer Dorne, that's not an easy place to fight. So coming in and kind of making, you kind of get to see that while she doesn't have the influence, she is still the heir and still the princess, because she looks at Otto and is like, we're going with this guy. All right. You explain it to your dad and to my dad if we're not, but I'm picking him. So I think that was super cool to kind of finally see them use this picking a Kingsguard job to kind of get her out of the conversation so they can, have their secret talks and whatnot. And then she kind of bulls over Otto and gets her way out of it. I think that's kind of very important and kind of an important setup for later on of what we're going to see as well.
Oh yeah, I was about to even say that, like, one of the reasons I love this scene is book readers know that, like, and I'm not going to spoil anything for non-book readers. This scene is one of the most important scenes in what this show is going to be about, and so that's why I loved it so much. Zach, did you have any opinion? What were your thoughts on the Kingsguard selection?
I thought this really shows that Rhaenyra has the complete opposite temperament of her father. Rhaenyra is more your modern, your full-on Targaryen. She is your prototypical one who the only way is her way, whereas Viserys has no idea what his way is. Rhaenyra is always charging in to make her own decision, and this was very evident in this scene.
100%, yeah. And so Criston Cole's chosen, and the next thing I want to talk about, and always feel free to jump in with me if I miss a scene or anything like that, is finally what I was happy about, getting some backstory into the Doom of Valyria as Viserys talks to Alicent Hightower. He talks about the blood mages and how, it was the hubris of the mages that brought down the doom. I loved all of that because I just eat up that lore from old Valyria. And he's building almost like a model of Valyria that was very reminiscent of Game of Thrones intro style. And that, and I thought it was really cool. And it's a little nod to the Game of Thrones. And we see that, he is becoming very close with Alicent Hightower.
Well, Viserys is a man who's obsessed with legacy. You see it in everything that he does. It's about making sure that I am positioned to have done something in my life that matters or to keep this line going. So the fact that Alicent doesn't really have to do much, all she has to do is take interest in his love of history and of legacy, and that's all she wrote. I mean, from that point on, it was very clear what was going to happen in the rest of this episode, and the way that it just consistently is all about what is history going to say about me? What is history going to say about my family and my decisions from here?
Yeah, so 100%. concerned with the history, not realizing that his concern with the history is what's going to make him, it's going to tarnish his legacy. Yeah, the Alicent Hightower scene. I mean, what a great job the actress does. I mean, just the whole gambit of it. To the picking of her fingers. We saw at the tourney scene. We didn't really talk about that, but when she's talking to Viserys. But yeah, man. I mean, and it doesn't seem like this is one of those weird, creepy old man things either. It seems like Alicent actually enjoys his company as well, which I mean is something that we can understand since we've all talked about Viserys being a really good guy and obviously has power, but he's not cruel. He's not mean. He's not, he would never dream of taking advantage of, Alicent or any of these suitors that people are bringing forward. Kind of shows you again, goes back to who Viserys actually is. And then getting to get that glimpse of the old Valyria. I mean, he's the last person on Earth to touch something from old Valyria, getting to ride the Black Dread. So that is, and he never took another dragon after that. So, I mean, that was very awesome to kind of see him bring that back and bring back that, like Zach said, about his legacy and what he can bring forward, how he can advance the Targaryen line. So I think that it was a perfect kind of setup for what we get throughout this episode.
Yeah. And so that takes us to Rhaenyra and Alicent in front of the statue of the mother, one of the seven, and not from the boys, but from the gods of the land. And we see that, they are this whole time, Alicent's kind of manipulating Rhaenyra, at this point. And it really goes into show that Alicent is one of these people playing the game. And, and Rhaenyra at this point doesn't really notice it. And, and we see the consequences of that later. I thought that was a well done scene. I liked the camera work. At one point, we have a view from the statue of the mother. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
To them praying? Yeah. I like that scene. I don't know if I felt as much it was manipulation on Alicent's part as more of it was her almost trying to soften up the blow for her friend. Like, hey, I don't know if you know, but I'm probably gonna be banging your dad soon. So no hard feelings or anything. But that was more what I got from it. And maybe that's the acting. Maybe she just made me feel it. But I feel like it was more of just a, hey, see how she's feeling about him having a new wife, and then kind of pushing that narrative to her that, hey, he's got to get a new wife, and so. Almost like well, why not your best friend instead of some random lady?
And to be fair, this dynamic was added for drama for HBO because in the books, Alicent's much older than Rhaenyra. They aren't friends. They are acquaintances in the court. So this whole dynamic of them is not a thing in the books, but I like it. It adds drama. It adds something going on. And but
it goes
Zach,
back
do you have
to
any opinions?
No, keep on rolling. I think you guys covered it. Absolutely.
Okay. And so we next see Corlys and Otto attempting the same thing. Very different tactics, and we kind of touched on it. Otto very kind of passively puts Alicent in the room. Go tell your stories. Wear something that your mother wore. Kind of connect with him on an emotional level, where Corlys is like, hey, dude, you need to remarry, and I've got a girl. Like, just straight up jumping right into it. And I think Viserys is a guy that isn't going to respond well to that. And he needs, being told, oh, go marry my 12-year-old is not going to work with Viserys. But hey, my 15-year-old will come hit on you. Will work for him. What are y'all's thoughts on the way that Corlys and Otto handled these situations?
One definitely handled it. Yeah, go ahead, Zach. You're good.
Again, it just shows, it's like a minor leaguer trying to play with Wayne Gretzky. Otto is so much better at this than Corlys is. And there's so much history already with Corlys and his wife, being the queen that never was, which, God, what a great nickname. Nothing else, the nicknames in this show between that, the Prince for a Day, I mean, good Lord. But you look at, the scene that Corlys has where he does try that brute, blunt force honesty, whereas Otto is very much of a, well, this might be happening, and lets Viserys come to the conclusion that Otto's already been out. So, whereas Corlys is trying to tell things, Otto is leading Viserys to conclusions that make it seem like it was his idea.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you have a king who's already kind of doubting his own strength a little bit, making him feel like he's the one who made this decision, this very, very, very important situation is if you want to get what you want, that's the way you do it.
Well, even kind of going back to how Otto handles the discussion about Laena Velaryon being a potential suitor for the king, and how at first he's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, she'd be a good match, I guess. And the Maester's kind of playing off with him. And then at the very end, he's like, well, I don't envy you. If it was me, I couldn't imagine somebody telling me I have to replace my wife with somebody random I don't really like. Just like Zach saying, just kind of walking him to where he needs him to be.
Yeah.
And then, but we can all agree that if it were me, I'd be taking one man's advice in this whole story, and it's Lionel Strong. That man is telling you what you need to hear, bro. He tells it. Laena Velaryon is the smartest match for you. It keeps the Velaryons as an ally. You don't necessarily lose allies from that choice. It's the best choice because it's they're going to keep the bloodline pure and Velaryon. It was kind of sad to see him not go with his main man's advice there, because it was definitely the best advice he got. But even after him meeting Laena, I did want to talk about and see what you guys thought about Rhaenys and Rhaenyra's discussion and their little talk that they had when she was walking by as Laena and Viserys are walking in the garden together. So what did you guys think about that? I thought that was such a crucial part and scene, and very interesting to see those two characters interact.
I liked it. I like how Rhaenys is playing this character of knowing that she is no longer truly in the game. So she's just kind of vibing, drinking, and just kind of like, let's see what chaos we can kind of do and see if we can help my kids out a little bit. She's always watching. She's always hanging out. She's got nothing better to do all day than just stir the pot and watch drama happen. And I love that. I love her. I love the way her and Corlys vibe as well. Like they're just constantly like even going back to episode 1, they're just like shit talking people to each other all day. Like I love their relationship, and I love the vibe they give off.
For hockey fans, she is the Arizona Coyotes in March and April. They've been out of it for ages, but all of a sudden they're just going to start playing spoiler and winning games just to mess with those that actually matter.
Yeah, it was just such an interesting concept. And again, it's one of those things that they kind of changed from the book because realistically, it was never a competition between Rhaenys and Viserys to be king. It was actually her firstborn son, Laenor, was actually the one that was in contention. And so it's interesting to see what this actress has done with this character. I mean, you really felt like, hey, look, it was in a weird kind of way, but you really felt like she was trying to impart some advice. Probably went about it the wrong way. Passive aggressive is never the way to get your point across if you actually wanted to get across. But that's the route she took, and probably more just wanted to say a few things. But I felt like it was something that needs to and will stick in Rhaenyra's head. It's got to, because that conversation, she'll come back to that conversation over the years and over the timeline that we'll see, I'm sure 100 times, even if we don't actually see it on screen. A very important part for her to kind of know, I don't want to say know her place, but, Rhaenys is warning her, hey, it's at one point, somebody's going to tell you, you need to know your place, and, you just need to be prepared for it. So I think that's kind of important for where we're going with this as well.
100%. And so we're getting close to the end. Probably the biggest scene so far in the series starts with finding out that Daemon, either himself, knowing he knows all the secret passages, or maybe he sent some people to steal Dreamfire's egg, which is it was the egg that was in Balon's crib. Also, during the Blackfire Rebellion, Dreamfire herself was used as a pawn for a lot of different, kings and would-be kings. They used Dreamfire. Dreamfire herself was stolen, so it kind of calls back to that. But this leads to once Rhaenyra and Viserys finds out which egg was stolen, you see that flip switches, because now we're talking about blood and family, and an insult. And we immediately see then the steps. We go to Dragonstone, just a absolutely beautiful set piece, by the way. Coming in there, you've got the ship coming in with the dragon head and the claws coming out. See, it is, we see the long stairs. It is an absolutely amazing scene. We see the room where we've seen Tyrion talk with people at Dragonstone so much. The map was not there either. The painted map of Westeros would have been there by now, but so obviously it's just in a different room. But yeah, and then we see this confrontation of Otto and some of the Kingsguard, and Daemon and the City Watch and the Gold Cloaks. I mean,
you talking about Sir Crispin? You talking about Sir Crispin?
So obviously, before we get to the more badass part, what were your guys' thoughts on this whole part?
Well, it was cool to actually see Dragonstone in all its glory. I mean, in Game of Thrones, it was a shell of what it was. It was Stannis's, Hall of Pain, if nothing else. It wasn't, the actual land of the Targaryens that we finally get to see. So I thought it was really neat to finally get to see that. And obviously, I mean, Rhaenyra comes in and steals the show here in just a few minutes.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Very cool. And you kind of see, again, going back to before them going, how Otto always got to have his thumb on things. He can't send anybody else to have this confrontation. He needs to be the one that goes and make sure he sees Daemon instead of the king seeing Daemon. If the king sees Daemon, they may work some stuff out, as brothers tend to do. They forget, some of the past transgressions. And so Otto had to be the one that showed up there. But, I mean, you mentioned you don't know if it was Daemon. I mean, I don't know that there are many other people in the entirety of the world that could sneak into the dragon pit and steal an egg. Yeah. So I'm thinking it probably was Daemon doing it. But yeah, it was a really cool kind of standoff there that we get. And again, going back to it's not an unkept mess at Dragonstone. It's actually a place of prominence at this point. I mean, the second greatest seat in the whole land at this point, you could argue. So
yeah. And I think this really humanizes Daemon, because we see right off the bat he's tossing this egg around like he doesn't really care about it. It's more of just he's making he wants attention. This is what this whole thing was, a cry for attention from his brother. Rhaenyra comes in on Syrax, and also we see Syraxis come in. I mean,
Correct.
the Bloodworm, Syraxis, sorry, and just with that like deviated septum roar, just like just this very unique roar from this dragon. And, you know, immediately you see all, you know, because things are getting a little tense, and immediately the Otto is like, guys, stand down, because it's like, well, things get fucked up. Then we see Syrax come in and immediately kind of sets everyone. It almost, the fact that there are now 2 dragons kind of almost calms everything down compared to what was just one dragon. And we see Rhaenyra come up, be a badass, and call Daemon out for being a little brat. She's like, so you're expecting a baby? He's like, well, I mean, I could one day, you know, I don't, who knows?
that was very important to kind of highlight that this was all for attention, because he said he was getting married and he was having a kid, and neither of those things are true. And we even see that his consort Mysaria was not so happy to hear that she is being used as a pawn in the Game of Thrones, if you will. You know, I mean, because she knows what that means for her. She said, it's nothing for you. You know, it's nothing for him to come over here and forgive you. But what do you think that they're going to do with that common whore that you married? You know, so it really goes to show you, like, some of the Targaryens aren't always thinking about how what they do affects everybody else, because they're the Targaryens, you know, they don't really have to think about that. But I loved that scene, and I loved her flying in out of the clouds. Oh, that was so,
you see the way the clouds broke like waves.
The waves of clouds are coming in. She flies over the top. Yeah, that was sick. And it kind of goes to show you again, and again, no spoilers, but their connection is very deep. You know, they have a love for one another, and it was the second best thing for Daemon to Viserys showing up. I think, you know, I was literally the only thing I think was going to calm him down was one of those 2 showing up on Dragonback to show, hey, what's up, man? You know, not Otto Hightower, like the insult it was to send, of all people, you know, Otto Hightower to come and take back that egg. I mean, it goes to show you how Viserys doesn't have his finger on the pulse a lot of times, and not understanding that political choice of who you send to go back and get that dragon egg.
Yeah. Zach, any thoughts?
No, I think we all covered it pretty thoroughly there.
So we pretty much towards the end of this episode, we see that Viserys announces his plan to marry. You kind of see the reactions in this scene are amazing. The actors did an amazing job. You see, you know, immediately Corlys kind of like is having this look like, haha, I've done it. Then immediately, you know, he kind of looks at Alicent. You know, Rhaenyra looks at Alicent and she's like, "What the fuck have you done?" And it's just kind of at a standstill. I almost expected, after the scene, I felt like Curb Your Enthusiasm should have come on with the way those reactions were.
The king marries it's like Always Sunny. The king marries a Hightower.
But then we immediately cut over to Corlys and Daemon having a meeting, talking about how we are the second sons of and you know, Corlys. And this time, it's almost like Corlys learned from his failure with his getting, and he's playing it a little bit more tactfully, you know, not, you know, kind of, you know, with because the fact is Corlys doesn't have an older brother. He's talking about how his house, Velaryon, has been second fiddle to the Targaryens and Dragon Lords for history. And so, you know, Daemon is the second son. They are the second family. And they can relate on that. And I think that was a very good scene to set the series for what's kind of going to be happening, which is now there is a split in the House of the Dragon, and we are starting.
But it still shows that Corlys isn't quite there yet.
Yeah,
because he's playing Viserys' song for Daemon. Is the problem. Yeah. And you can tell Daemon's not really buying it because, you know, he's like, you know, I'm the one who gets to say this about my brother. Not
exactly.
You.
Yeah. He did the classic thing of, I can talk shit about my family. Yeah. You don't get to.
It was still missing the mark. He tried to go a little more subtly, but it was just still not there. It's exactly as we see from Otto Hightower. Otto Hightower has never like outright expressed what he thinks the king should do in his mind. He just sets it here on a plate and says, "Oh man, this, that you need to eat this." So Corlys, I mean, is still going to like, well, you can show up Viserys, and it's just more of a misunderstanding of the whole entirety of the game. That he is a warrior. He's a man that says what he feels, and he hopes that other men will just accept what he feels. It's not like that.
It reminds me a lot. Corlys reminds me a lot of Ned Stark. Because let's be honest, we all love Ned Stark. Ned Stark absolutely sucked at the Game of Thrones. Like
he was not good.
What did he like? Who thought just going up to Cersei and be like, I know that you had a kid with your brother in the garden was going to be a good idea.
while having the legal authority signed in your hand that you're the Lord Protector of the realm. Like, you don't even need to talk to anybody else. It's like, call your homies in. Let's.
And I like that. I like that this show, just as Game of Thrones did, doesn't paint everyone good or bad. It is a mix of moral ambiguity in
everyone. Who they are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's not easy to just be like, oh, I like this person because they're on this side, or, when it's even harder now because like in Game of Thrones, it was, oh, I like this person because I like this house. Where now it's the Targaryens, and it's a little bit like, and, one thing I did notice I liked is that they made it very clear these first 2 episodes. This is not Game of Thrones. The Starks are not the main characters. We saw a lot of scenes where Stark's getting killed. We saw just a random one off of a Stark bending the knee. They're just another house at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, is there anything you guys want to sign off? Any final thoughts? I know we went a little bit longer than we were supposed to, but hey, we're having fun with the week. Honestly, like we said before in the before show, we could probably talk Targaryens for 3 hours.
Easily.
I will say that I'm super excited for all of the different dragons we're going to meet. I know there's a large portion. We're not going to get to meet all of them. But from the dance, I am super excited because they have almost as intriguing of stories as some of the actual Targaryen, human characters. So I'm really excited to see if they actually kind of invoke a little bit of that into the show.
As someone who only made it about halfway through Fire and Blood, I immediately thought, maybe I should back that up back up again, which is the best kind of endorsement I can give the show. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
Additionally, I'll do a bit of shameless self-promotion here. If you're into fantasy, make sure to check out the podcast that I'm on, the RPG Radio Show. We just launched our 2nd season. You can find it on all podcast services. So,
absolutely.
And there will be a link in the show description down below, so check them out.
Thank you.
Shame, we don't have shame, Zach. You knew that.
Exactly.
There's no shames allowed on this show. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had you back on.
Exactly. Perfect.
But all right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the first episode of the HomePod Office. Hope to see you again next week. Where we're gonna have, we don't know who we're gonna have on, but we'll be talking episode 3. We wanted to kind of play catch up a little bit, so we did episode 1 and 2. Next week will just be episode 3, and then we might eventually play catch up, so we're on the same timeline. But until next time, for Zach McCann, Brandon, I'm Bobby. This has been HomePod Office. See you all next time.
Peace.